How to quiet your mind. So this video is going to be specifically talking about when you have trouble sleeping. You might be lying in bed late at night and you just have thoughts flying through it, or even during the day you just feel like your mind is moving at a million miles an hour, and you wind up listening to music or like putting an audiobook on or a podcast to try to like calm it and give yourself something to focus on. And this is how I solved it for myself. So for me, what I didn't realize is the issue was actually having the podcast on all the time, having the music on, having the audiobook on, because I wasn't allowing myself to process the thoughts and reflect throughout the day. And it's kind of like, if someone keeps handing you books throughout the day, and these books will be your thoughts, and you take the book, you put it on the bookshelf where it belongs, and then you move on with your day, and then someone gives you another book, you're like, okay, I'm just going to put that where that belongs. And the reason why I use this analogy is because it's the same with your thoughts. You have to catalog your thoughts. Like some new person's name, you're like, okay, well, that's the name. You kind of like place it mentally where you want to place it. Or say you wanted to think about like what you should get your brother for his birthday. Like you would think about that throughout the day, and you would make a mental note, I should think about that. If you don't think about that while you're driving your car, while you're washing the dishes, while you're doing any other mundane task that you might have an audiobook on, have music on, you're not going to be thinking about that. You're going to be focusing on the music, you're going to be focusing on the audiobook and the information coming to you. But your brain is going to make time to have that thought. So what can wind up happening is you'll have that thought during the first quiet time you have, which is right before bed at night when you put your phone away. Sometimes people dislike their brain running and feeling like it's moving a million miles an hour because they haven't slowed it down and given themselves time, a long enough time to reflect and just have these thoughts. And trust me, your brain does slow down. It can take a week, it can take 2 weeks, but if you make time to just not listen to stuff, your brain will chill itself out, because you're constantly multitasking. You're constantly asking your brain to do the dishes while listening to music, do this and this and this. You're not giving it any time to rest. So like, don't give up after 2 days and be like, oh, my brain still feels like it's moving really fast. A lot of this comes from a lot of the reason why this can get made worse by people is the fear they have about disliking the feeling of having their brain moving that fast. So they'll fear they'll fear being alone with their thoughts. So they'll put an audiobook on, they'll put something on, and they'll set a timer, and they'll have it turned off while they'll listen to it in order to fall asleep. This is really bad because you're giving yourself no time to reflect throughout the whole day. And if you don't make time somewhere in there, like it can be over your morning bowl of cereal, or while you're eating. But a lot of this issue is made worse by listening to stuff constantly while you're eating, while you're doing things, because you're never allowing your brain to calm down. Getting out to nature without your phone is great. I'm recording this if I have my phone, but you need to give your brain time to have the thoughts that it wants to have. And if you've been listening to stuff for years, it might take a week or two to sort itself out, because there's a lot of thoughts your brain wants to have. Some people dislike how fast their brain moves because they're never really conscious and are always multitasking and having something playing in the background. And they dislike that feeling so much that when they get home, they numb it via alcohol. And alcohol doesn't really... I've never been the most reflective person anytime I ever get drunk or consumed a lot of alcohol. I'm kind of like, not really reflective, not thinking about things. And then you lose the opportunity to reflect upon your day, upon what you've been doing, what you've accomplished this past year. And then when you mess that up, you eventually forms itself into a habit where you keep drinking or listening to something in order to escape from the speed and the craziness of your own mind. And then eventually you'll be like 80 years old, and you might not be able to get out of bed, you might not be able to do anything, and you'll just have to sit there and think through all the thoughts you never allowed yourself to have. I'd rather think through those thoughts now. Like, I'd literally rather think through those thoughts now so that I can make corrections if I need to make corrections. And yeah, it's like, imagine if back when you're in school, your teacher said, well, I'll take a test with you and you can ask me at each question whether or not your answer is right, and I'll say yes or no. And then at the end, you submit your paper versus doing all the questions by yourself and then turning it at the end. It's like having time to reflect upon it and course correct is a way better way of living. Like, you're most likely going to get a lot better grade if you're able to reflect and ask the teacher, hey, is this correct each time? And that's what it's kind of doing for yourself. You're allowing yourself a self-check-in. So, yeah. Not necessarily saying you become an alcoholic if you don't be more mindful. Oh, and this is called mindfulness. While you're doing activities without your phone, such as walking, focus on your 5 senses. How does the air smell? You can also just, while doing the dishes, while doing the trash, how does the air smell? What sounds can I hear? How does the air feel on my skin? That's always one that you can do if you're moving. Like, how's the sun feel on my skin? How, like, you try to just bring yourself into your body and give yourself something to focus on. Because a lot of times you're like, well, what do I do? I feel like my mind's moving really fast still. Breathe. Really just breathe. Focus on your breath. And eventually, if you're focusing on your breath, you'll calm down a little bit, and because your breath is part of your, I think it's autonomic nervous system, meaning that you can do it without having to put conscious thought into it, but you can also consciously control your breath. You'll naturally lose track of it, and you'll just enter a more calm and peaceful space. But yeah, if you want to calm your mind down, then it's very doable. But the important thing is listening to stuff constantly. It might make your mind feel a little bit more calm because you're giving it something to focus on, but, really big but, you're never giving your mind the time to have those thoughts. And it's like the pressure builds up. It's literally, you can think of it like a pressure buildup where you're never allowing anything through the pipe, any thoughts to get through, because you're constantly, if you have 2 streams of water, if you have 2 pipes connecting, I'm not going to get into a big pipe analogy, but basically, you're going to get a blockage, the pressure's going to build up, the thoughts are going to build up, and it's going to make it, the longer you've been doing this, the faster the thoughts are going to be coming. So that's all I want to say. But it does let up, it does get quiet, and it's really, really nice. Like, here's something I'll say. A lot of the time, if you're constantly listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, you're like, oh my God, that's really smart. That's really smart. When you start reflecting upon your own life, you become really smart. Like, literally, a lot of the stuff they talk about is common sense. And if you sat down for a minute, maybe 10 minutes while driving one day, and you just really thought about a topic, you could get there. It's not that difficult. But when your mind's moving that fast, any small bit of like insight that you could get from reflection, you're like, oh my God, that's amazing, I should write this down. You don't write that down. It further clogs up the pipelines because you're like, I should remember this. You make a mental note to remember that, and it just adds to the blockage of your mind's moving so fast because you're trying to juggle all these tasks. Another great thing, write down every single thing you want to do. Everything. I did this. It took me 22 notebook pages. And it takes a couple days. Like, write down everything you want to do, like your whole to-do list. Then you just add to it over the next couple days because you won't think of it all at once. But once you have it all written down, that is no longer a to-do list. That is a, what was I was doing? It's not a to-do list. It's a, I'm trying to play with this. Holy crap, I'm drawing a blank. Give me a second. Yes, it's not a to-do list. It is a brainstorming list in order to help you find the most important task to work on at that point in time. That is something that helped me a lot. I've worked on everything I wanted to do. And then I broke my day up into sections of like family, working out, personal, and then for each of the time slots, when something comes up, when I have time in that slot that I'm investing in it, I look at my thing. I'm like, what's the most important thing for me to be doing right now for this thing? And I just do that. And if you're more interested in that, it's called The One Thing. But seriously, write down everything. Get it out of your head. You'll no longer be juggling tasks, constantly trying to remember them all the time. That is really great. Because back in school, I used to always stress out if I didn't know what to do. Like, when my assignments were due. In that first week, you're like, I know something's due, but I don't know what it is. That will stress you out a lot. So make your list, and then you'll know what you want to get done. Peace out.